It's a case that was so disturbing that it still chills the blood of many who hear it. For over 60 years, the case has remained unsolved, and the victim has remained without justice. In fact, the victim hasn't even been identified in all this time, in a case that seems to defy belief. It was a cold February day in Philadelphia in 1957. A young man had set muskrat traps in the woods off Susquehanna Road in Fox Chase. Hoping he managed to trap a few muskrats, he set off into the woods, but what he came across was horrifying beyond what he could imagine. He came across a cardboard box for a bassinet. This was a strange sight, so the man decided to take a quick look inside the box. What he saw scarred him forever. The dead body of a young boy, perhaps only 5 years old, was inside, wrapped in a blanket. Shockingly, the man didn't report this to police. He was afraid of the police confiscating his muskrat traps, so he left and said nothing. A few days later, a different man was driving by those same woods, and he spotted a rabbit running around the area. He knew that there were traps set, so he got out of his car to follow the rabbit. That's when he spotted the bassinet box. Upon inspecting it, he discovered the boy's body. He, too, wasn't willing to contact authorities over the matter, so he walked back to his car and left. Thankfully, he had a change of heart the following day and decided to contact the police, who arrived on the scene quickly. The investigation had finally begun. The boy in the box was found battered. His hair had been cut either shortly before or after death, as some of the cut hair was found on his body. Aside from his horrible condition, his fingernails were clipped down neatly, as if he had been cared for at some point. Police were optimistic that it would only be a matter of time before the boy was identified. It was probable that he was already reported missing, but investigators soon discovered that they were very wrong. No one had reported the boy missing, and once the word had gotten out about their discovery, no one came forward to claim him as their own. No one even came forward to say that they knew the boy. Authorities were baffled. Police decided to take further steps in a desperate hope that someone could identify the boy. They dressed his body and sat him up in a few photos to make him look more alive, hoping that it could click for someone. Yet still, no one came forward. Somehow, this child had no relations or loved ones that were either able or willing to step into the light to be sure that this unknown child would receive what belonged to him, something that should have never been taken away: his name. Public interest was high, but it did nothing to help. Police did focus on one person in particular named Charles Speece. 9 locals from nearby Camden, New Jersey, believed that they knew the identity of the boy. It was Charles Speece's own son, who was named Terry Lee Speece. Charles, a roofer, was now on the authorities' radar. 9 individuals coming forward saying beyond a doubt that the child was, in fact, Terry Lee Speece was impossible to ignore. So the police chief demanded that police find and question Charles. Some of these individuals were even brought to the morgue to view the body, and right there before the child's body still pointed the finger positively at Charles. Police brought in the mother of Terry Lee Speece, who was no longer living with Charles, to view the body as well. She said that it, without a doubt, wasn't her son Terry. Investigators went one step further and brought in the mother's parents to view the body, and they were undecided, saying that it could have been their grandson Terry, just as much as it might not have been. One factor was perhaps most suspicious of all. Charles Speece vanished just 2 days before the discovery of the unidentified boy's body. It looked like the authorities had gotten the lead that they were so desperately after and would finally close the case. And then they found Charles Speece. Much to the investigators' disdain, Charles Speece was not the murderer that they were starting to believe he was. Charles Speece was located with his son, Terry, who was entirely safe. Not only this, but Terry was 8 years old, and the autopsy ruled that the body of the unidentified boy was likely 4 or 5. There, of course, was a margin of error, but that hardly mattered now. Police were officially back to square one, and had spent precious time on chasing down a man who had logical reason to be a suspect, but wasn't at all. But the police weren't finished getting leads, some of which were especially disturbing. One of the more popular theories relates to a foster home that was settled only a mile and a half away from where the boy's body was found. Authorities were so in need of information they even consulted with a psychic from New Jersey who gave an employee of the medical examiner's office named Remington Bristow a description of a house to investigate. And oddly enough, the house matched up with the foster home. The psychic even brought Remington directly to the foster home when she was brought out to visit the site where they found the boy's body. Tirelessly trying to solve the case, Remington involved himself heavily in the investigation and ended up attending an estate sale at the foster home. One of the items being sold there was a bassinet, similar to the one that would have come in the box the boy was found in, purchased at JCPenney. On the clothing line outside of the house, blankets similar to the one that the boy was found wrapped in were hanging. Remington speculated that the child was born to the stepdaughter of the man who ran the foster home, and because of the shame that came with being an unwed mother, the child was killed during some kind of event, perhaps even accidentally. Remington pursued the case until his death in 1993. Police did follow up on investigating the foster home, but were unable to establish a definite link. In 1998, Philadelphia Police Lieutenant Tom Augustine, with a group of retired officers and profilers, visited the old foster home to conduct an interview. At this time, the man who owned the home was now married to his own stepdaughter. Despite the strangeness of the situation and a lingering suspicion, there wasn't enough evidence to tie in the foster home to the boy in the box, and so the foster home investigation was put to a close. The next theory is more disturbing and didn't come to light until 2002, when a woman identified only as Martha or simply as M came to police to tell them that the boy in the box's name was actually Jonathan. Martha claimed to know this because, according to her, her mother had purchased Jonathan from his own birth parents in the summer of 1954. Jonathan was used as a slave after that point in time and had to live a horrible life, enduring severe beatings and sexual assault. Martha said that one night during dinner, Jonathan had vomited up some of his baked beans that he had been eating and was beaten harshly for it. Jonathan was in and out of consciousness as he was dragged into the bathroom and given a bath. It was in the bathtub that he succumbed to his injuries and died. Police were immediately alerted by this story because the details aligned with things only investigators knew. The boy's fingers were pruned slightly, as if he had been submerged in water before he died, and during the autopsy, baked beans were found in his stomach. Martha said that once the boy had died, her mother quickly and crudely cut the boy's hair, which was much longer before. This accounted for the unprofessional-looking haircut the body had, along with the hair found on the body. This was done in an effort to conceal his identity from anyone who would ever see him in the news. And if that's the case, then it worked, because no one was coming forward with any reason for police to believe the child was linked to them. Martha said that she was forced by her mother to help and dump the body in the Fox Chase area. When they were pulling the body out of the trunk, they seemed to be having a bit of trouble. A man pulled his car up and asked if they needed any help. As he was pulling up, Martha's mother ordered Martha to stand in front of the license plate to obstruct it from view. Martha's mother assured the man that nothing was wrong and they had it all taken care of. This also aligned with testimony a man had given to police earlier. Despite such a strong story, the police knew that Martha was a resident with a history of mental illness. Neighbors who lived nearby at the time and had been inside Martha's home had said that they never saw a little boy living there. Martha was written off as being ridiculous, and her story vanished into obscurity. To this day, there is still no identity for the young boy in the box, who is also oftentimes referred to as America's unknown child. Though a number of theories continue to cross the desks of investigators, and new methods of investigation are assisting in a resolution to this horrible crime, such as DNA, nothing has been conclusive. Justice has remained elusive, and it's quite possible that we will never know not only how the boy in the box died, but even what his name was at all. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think the foster home was involved? Do you think Martha's story was brushed off far too easily, or do you have something else in mind?